Let's start with our first session. Now in this session, we are going to create few parts, okay, particularly part number 1 that will be also known as the bottom plate. Now what I'm going to do is to start with our new part, I'm going to click on new. Here I need to first define the location where exactly I need to save the file. So let's say I want to save the file in this location. So I'm defining the location. So in my condition, it is in D drive in the project folder, and here I have created a folder called product interface training. Now what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new folder here called master. Okay, and here in the master folder, I'm going to click OK. So all my data will be stored inside this folder. You can decide the folder you want, but remember, try to save all the data related to a single assembly in a single folder so that we are not having any trouble in referring to those data in future. So now I'm going to give a name to this part as bottom plate. Bottom underscore plate. Now we have started a new part file, and the part file name is now bottom plate. The first thing what we are going to do is I'm going to click on sketch. So here I'm going to click on sketch. Now if you are using a latest version of NX, you might also need to do one setting. This will help you in order to get the proper sketching environment. So what I can do here is I can go to file, I can go to utilities, early access feature, file, utilities, early access feature, and here you will find one option called use the new solver and UI for sketching. Okay, we can find this option called use the new solver and UI for sketching. What we can do is we can turn it off. If it is already on, we can turn it off so that for all of us, the setting of creating the sketch will remain the same. Now I'll click on sketch. Now I'll click OK. Now let's say I'll start my sketch with a simple center rectangle. So here I'm creating a simple center rectangle. Now here I want to define some sizes to my rectangle, and I want to remember those sizes for my future diagram as well. Okay, so let me define this length as 500. Okay, and the width as 250. Okay, or let's say 300 for this example. So here it is 500 by 300. This is the length and width of this rectangle. I also want to have some guide pillars on the sides. So here I'm going to add a hole. Let's say the hole diameter which I'm going to add will be of the hole will be of diameter, let's say 40. Okay, so this will be the diameter of the guide pillar, and I want to have 4 of them. So I'll use mirror. Okay, using this center line. Again, I'll use mirror to mirror these 2 holes using this center line. Now, what I can also do is I can create a dimension here defining the placement of this hole. So let's say I want to keep this hole at 50 mm distance from this side and 50 mm distance from this side. Okay, so these holes are ready, or basically the location of the guide pillars are ready. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to create a small circle here. This circle will be the main punch, or whatever things we are about to create. This is the main punch of the press tool. So we are making a simple press tool right now. So here I'm going to make it vertically aligned. I'm also going to give this a diameter. Let's say I'm going to give this a diameter of 120 for now, and location wise I want to make sure that this particular hole is located at a distance of 100 from here. Now obviously there are a lot of values which we might have to remember. Okay, now before we continue, please cross check the value with yours. So we have 500 here, 300 here, 50 and 50 here. We have 40 over here as a diameter, 120 as a diameter over here, and 100 as a distance of this hole, right? Now typically there are a lot of values which we have to remember. Normally in many cases we might refer to a 2D drawing, which will help us to understand what these values are and how exactly the things are working. But now what we are going to do is, once we have this things sorted out, we can click on finish and we can click on extrude. Now while creating an extrude, I need to define what thickness I want for this plate. Okay, so here we have to make sure the curves are selected. Now before you go to extrude, make sure your sketch is already selected and then only click on extrude. Otherwise your extrude will ask for the selection of the curve. Now here we need to define what is the thickness we want for the plate. Okay, so if I'm defining a plate of 30 mm thickness, this is how it's going to look like. So for now, what we are going to do is we are going to have a plate of 40 mm thickness. So here we are going to define a value of 40 and I'm going to click OK. In ideal condition, this is how you normally model the part. Okay, in normal condition, this is how we normally model the part. Now obviously the part is modeled, okay, or we can say the part is ready, but giving it a color or a material will always help us in later part of drafting. So what I can do is I can apply some color to this particular part. To apply a color, what we can do, we can press Control J. Control J is a shortcut for editing the display of any object. So Control J. Then I can select the object. I can click OK. And now I can define the color by clicking on this color button here. And I can select any particular color from this list. So let's say I'm selecting this color and I'm clicking OK. So now my color is defined for the object. Now once the object is defined with a color, we are done with the first object. But before we say our first object is completed, we will add one more step to this particular part. Okay. Now I want to use this information to build the next part. Okay, which I'm going to build in further in this particular series. So I need to make sure I remember all the dimension and I have a close reference to this part, because I want this guide pillar to align with the guide, pin properly, with the top plate properly, and the punch hole and everything should get aligned properly, right? So what I can do for future references, here I can go to the Assemblies tab. Okay, and here I have an option called as Interface. Okay, in the Assembly tab, I'll just zoom in to this option. Here we have an option called as Interface. Now this particular option is very important. I can click on Interface option. Now here what I can do is I can select this plate, which is the bottom plate, and it will create an interface for me, which will be named as solid body. I can also right click and go to properties to rename the interface. Okay, so I can go to properties here, and here I can rename the interface as bottom plate. Or if you don't want to rename it, you can keep it as it is. As of now, I am renaming this interface as bottom plate so that in future I'll remember which interface I'm working with. You can also add multiple interface in a single part. Now at this particular point, you might not be aware about what is interface, but soon in the next video, you will be understanding about what is interface. Now if I see here on the top left corner in the tree, in the part navigator, I can see my product interface and I can see the output is bottom plate. Or in your case, it might be a solid body if you have not renamed the interface. Okay, so thank you for listening to this session, and I hope you are doing it properly. Let's continue with the next one.